Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's training. Subject matter for today is building a powerful brand. We're going to be talking about strategies and insights. I'm going to share my screen with you here shortly. Thank you for joining for this session because 2024 means a lot of changes in branding and marketing, and branding is something that we have to nail down in order to represent our business as well. And before we can even begin to think about the marketing piece that we all love to do so much. But branding is all going to be about the foundation of how that starts, the representation of your business in the sight of others who come in contact with it on many different platforms, right? And so we're going to take a look at that. I'm going to share my screen with you. We have got a couple of hours that I'm going to make very exciting for you. I'm going to ask for your participation and feedback. So feel free to be active in the chats. There will be time for Q&A. So if you have any questions at any time throughout the session, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And before we end today's session, we'll circle back and we'll try to get all of those things answered for you. Like Ms. Hesse was mentioning earlier when we first got on, you will be provided a copy of today's presentation. And I like to also send out the slide deck also, so you can be on the lookout for that. And I love to give homework because I am the daughter of a retired educator. And so homework has stuck with me all my life. So there may be an assignment or two that can actually just be used as a resource to help you build your own personal brand in your business, or even rebrand if rebranding is something that you've been thinking of doing. So without further ado, I am going to start today's presentation. And let me share my screen with all of you so you can watch and follow along. And don't forget, please share your questions in the chat as we're going along if you have any. And I love comments as well, so feel free to talk back to me in the chat as this presentation goes along. So building a powerful brand, strategies and insights. I'm Cynthia Ellis, your business coach for today. And I'm partnering with the Uplift program to bring you this awesome presentation on branding, which is a program I absolutely love to be a part of. So let's talk about what's in it for you, right? With this particular presentation, here's what you can expect from this webinar. You're going to gain a comprehensive understanding of the significance of branding, and you're going to get some actionable steps that you can take to build your own powerful brand that's going to resonate with your people, your audience. I'm going to give you practical insights and some real world examples today, and answer any questions that you have that can help you craft and elevate your own effective brand. This webinar is not only going to focus just on branding itself strategically for businesses, it's also going to encompass what branding would look like for nonprofit organizations or any local government organizations like chambers of commerce or tourism development authorities. So first off, branding is such a well-known thing, and the idea of branding has been around for decades now. And even when branding, the name itself, was not in mainstream, we all saw representation of what brands look like. We all had our own experiences with brands. And if you can just see what's on the screen here now, we have all had some sort of contact with these four major brands even that we're looking at. So the idea here is that even when you don't think that you're interacting with a brand, you are always interacting with brands on some level, whether they be larger corporate brands or small business brands or local government and nonprofit brands. We're always interacting with a brand of some sort. The difference with a more powerful brand, and the power behind brands is really what we're talking about today, and how to create that power for your own brand, actually comes from a deeper place. And it comes from the root of how an organization is started. What are the folks in leadership thinking when they want to create a powerful brand that is going to create legacy for their business and that is going to stand out amongst the rest? Those are the tips and strategies that I'm going to give you today, is to actually kind of brand your business as if you were already a 6 or 7 figure business. What would that thought process look like in the very beginning as a startup? Because I'm a startup coach naturally. So I'm going to tell you how to get this branding thing off the ground, right? So here's what we're going to do first. We're going to look at the actual definition or the reasoning behind branding. So branding is just you focusing really on the appropriate representation of your business and how you want your customers to feel when they're experiencing your business in any setting. So it's really thinking about, how would I want my customers to feel about my business, or how would I want my customers to express what they feel like they've experienced about my business in any setting that they're in. So whether they're sitting in their living room talking to their family about your business, or whether they're on stage making a presentation and the name of your business just happens to come up. Or what if they're in a conference room in a meeting and businesses are being discussed and your business comes up on the list, on a roster of other businesses? What would you want someone to experience or feel anytime that your business came up anywhere? That representation is branding. Branding happens for you personally. You carry a personal brand for yourself. There's a certain way that you stand out among others. And it's the same concept for your business. It's going to be, how does your business stand out among other things and among other businesses? So we've talked about what branding is, but if we want to make that a little bit more technical, it's going to be the art and science of influencing the perception, again, that perception about your product or service or your organization. That's what branding is to us. And that's a great definition by Sean T, who's got a wealth of knowledge on branding himself. So a little bit deeper meaning here. It's a unique and meaningful identity, and branding happens in 4 different sectors. And there are 4 different ways that you can think about this when you're framing a brand for your own business. Your brand should be unique, different, it should offer a promise, and it should definitely be able to connect. This is the process and how branding is going to happen for your business, right? That uniqueness means how you stand out in the minds of your consumers and how you stand out amongst the competition. That makes you, what makes you special? What makes your brand stand out, especially amongst your competition? That's a little bit different from differentiation. Differentiation means that you should be offering something that your competition does not. So uniqueness is standing out in the minds of everyone, and that differentiation is the actuality of actually offering something that your competition doesn't offer, which usually falls into a promise that you make in your business or your organization. There's something that you're promising everyone that your business can deliver. And the challenge with that, or at least the task or the accountability that falls on you as the business owner, is following through with that promise. But first, branding is all about making sure that that promise is clear, concise, and believable, because that's what builds brand trust. The last thing there is the connection again. So a brand should create something meaningful and lasting for customers. This is what creates legacy in a brand, is building a connection with someone. The human brain is trained to remember things that you can make a connection with. So if you think about if you were in a room full of individuals and you were trying to remember everyone's name, the best tool that you can use is to try to relate each name that you come across to something that's already in your brain. And we're going to talk about archetypes later, and how archetypes are things that we naturally find a kinship to with other things that we come in contact with. Brands that build a connection are brands that are well known, they are trusted, and they stay around a long time. Brands that know how to build a connection in people's minds with other things that they've experienced are brands that have that legacy, and they stick around and people identify them. They're like Targets when you go out to them, and that's a good example. Target stores, they're their own brand. So when we're looking for a certain type of store, if we're not going to Walmart, then we're hopping over to Target. So there are different things that stand out with brands, but just know that when you're in the process of branding, your brand needs to definitely touch on these 4 things in depth: the uniqueness of it, the differentiation from your competition, the promise that your brand is going to deliver, and the connection that it's going to have with the people that come in contact with it. All right. If you think that that's true, drop a thumbs up emoji, or agree in the chat. Let me know what you think about that. Yes, authenticity is key. I love that, because you have to be original. A brand is You are your business. You're the representation of it. And so when your brand is projected, people are seeing you. They're seeing what your business stands for, that vision, that mission, that purpose, the objectives, all of that should come out in your branding. And notice that I haven't limited branding to logos, right? Because branding is more than just graphics and pictorial representation. It's not all about the pictures and the graphics. Branding is deeper than that. Remember that it's the feeling and the experience that people have with your brand. All right, I see you guys in the chat. Yes, participate with me. You agree? Absolutely. When should you begin to even start thinking about branding your business, right? And that should be branding instead of marketing. But when should you even start thinking about the idea of branding? So we are kind of naturally thinking about the responsibilities in our business when we're just beginning. And we tend to prioritize branding in the early stages of our business because, especially if we don't have business experience, one of the things that stands out in our minds when we see successful businesses is how we've connected with their brand. So naturally, one of the first things that we think about is, how are people going to recognize me? How are people going to see me? And so the answer to this question is that you should really start thinking about branding in the beginning stages of your business while you're planning startup funding, while you're planning what paperwork that you're going to have to use or file to make your business credible and legitimate with the state and federal government. It should go along with all of those things that you're thinking about early in the beginning. And if you're struggling with your branding, this is going to be pivotal for you, because I want you to understand that even if you have somewhat kind of branded your business already, you get to rewrite your story as the business owner. And what you can do at this point is you can use this webinar as a checkpoint to say, is my branding fulfilling all of these needs in the minds of my customers? And if you think it is not, then you can definitely evaluate where you are right now as a business and have an expert evaluate that with you. And then we can actually have the discussion about restructuring your branding so it represents you the way that you wish to be represented. And sometimes I'm getting away from the notes here for just a minute, but these are very key points, because the perception that we have in our minds about our brand is often very different from the perception that customers and potential clients or customers, and even people out in our community, have of our brand. Our perception is different because our businesses are something that we're very proud of, that we've invested a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of resources into. And so we are very happy about it. You know, we have a lot of zeal about it. We've got a lot of get up and go about it. And we know all about our business. The issue is everyone that we come in contact with, or everyone that we think should know about our business, does not. And as great as we think it is not common knowledge for someone to know as much about your business and be a stakeholder in your business like you would think they are, or be involved and know about it. So yes, that's exactly right. I'm reading the comments here and touching on them. Is perception is unique to the individual. Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. So this is what happens with branding. It's strong with us, but we have to strengthen it with the people that we are trying to reach. And that starts at the beginning. Branding is crucial for creating a distinct idea for your business and building that positive perception in the minds of your customers and community stakeholders. So branding is an ongoing process, right? We don't just do it once. Branding doesn't happen just once and then it's over. It's ongoing. And it doesn't mean that you have to change the graphic representation every week, every month, every year. But it does mean that you should have an understanding that you are evolving as a business owner, and that the economy is evolving around you, and that the perception of customers and the generation of customers that you are reaching are not always going to stay the same age. Their situations are not going to stay the same. And your business offerings may even change. So your branding has to evolve in order to correctly represent your business over a length of time. All right. So it's an ongoing process as you grow and as your business grows. But starting this branding process early allows you to build a strong foundation for that brand, and it makes it easier for you to expand your brand and for it to be adapted in other places throughout your business in the future. So here's the thing about branding. If you do it right, branding will eventually sell itself. So we want people to say one thing about us when they come in contact with our brands. That is a great brand. And so here are the 7 ways that we're going to touch on today to set up a powerful brand design. That happens in step 1, setting goals and core values for your business. Step 2 is going to be understanding who your audience is. Step 3 is going to be getting out there and exploring. And then step 4, if you notice about midway down, not the priority, not number 1, but when we get down to step 4, we can actually begin to design a brand. And then we're going to create a portfolio to compile all of this information. We're going to, number 6, make sure our brand continues to evolve and keep it relevant. And then the last thing that we're going to do is talk about getting ready to grow and expanding a brand. And I know that there's a lot of talk about expanding business, but in order to expand business, you have to be able to expand your brand. Everybody type that in the comments, expand your brand. So the first thing that you've got to do with a brand is establish yourself as an authority. Well, how do we do that? That is the first thing. That's number 1. It is defining your business core. What's at the core of your business? That's right, expand your brand. I love that. What is at the core of your business? You're going to be using setting goals, goal setting, setting SMART goals to determine what is at the core of your business. You need to form your mission and vision statements, and they need to be based on your business's capabilities and the reason behind your business. So everybody needs a why. That's the core of your business. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Simon Sinek. Pretty much everybody has now, but he wrote these amazing books. He's an amazing author and leader that talks about starting with why. And if you haven't read that book, you definitely need to check it out because it will actually help you uncover and define the core for your business as well as what's going on with you personally and your purpose. And that helps you with your personal brand as well, and to intermingle the two so that they are really powerful, because we're talking about building a powerful brand, which is a brand that is impactful. All right. You want to indicate which elements are going to be setting your business apart, and not only just identify the things that you think are setting your business apart, but why do those things set your business apart? And you're going to make a list of these things. Why is there a need for your products and services? And you have to think about this from not only your perspective, but think about it from the customer's perspective or the community's perspective. Why is there a need for what you're doing, for what you're selling, for your products and services? And what is it that you're offering? What's the need for them? Form that vision and mission statement. And I like to add to that some objectives, because the objectives start to tap into what are your business's capabilities and the reasoning behind you doing what you're doing. This is the birth of a really strong brand. You have to begin with setting your goals, your business goals, and thinking about what are the core values behind those goals? What is the reasoning for me wanting to obtain a certain goal? That's the first thing you need to list out. This is the foundation of creating a powerful brand. So on the surface, the name of a brand is simple. And this is at the very beginning. Naming your business or your organization, setting a goal for it, writing that vision and mission statement. And I love William Shakespeare. What's in a name that which we call a rose, by any other name would smell as sweet as Romeo and Juliet, for you other Shakespeare lovers out there. So we all know who William Shakespeare is, and anyone has always heard of Romeo and Juliet. This is a great example of a brand, but carefully crafting a memorable name. Think about how powerful Romeo and Juliet is today, in which I'm sure that they probably were not talking about branding in the same sense that we were in Shakespeare's time, but this is just how we relate to it today. What you do in creating your brand is actually becoming a part of someone else's life. And having that understanding helps us be more selective in the things that we do, like creating a name for our brand, because it's going to build immediate recognition when people hear it and when people see it. And people are willing to pay more for the name of the brands that they trust than they are for brands that they don't trust. And we see a good example of that when we have a brand name of a product versus a generic name of a product. A brand name will always come out on top. And there are brand names in stores right on the shelf next to store brand names. And folks will always pay more for that brand name because it's an established name that they trust and they've seen some proof, they've seen it in the media, and they're willing to pay more because it's something that they trust. That's the concept that you have to think about when you're forming your brand. How does my brand intermingle with someone's daily life? All right. And so I got a funny picture here. So there have been a lot of things floating around on the internet about the likeness and image of celebrities throughout time. But I want to also use branding in this example. So we're talking about William Shakespeare. Well, his current day likeness is Anne Hathaway's husband. And notice how the husband's name isn't on here. Because if his name was on here, you would have no idea who he was or why he would even be considered some sort of celebrity. But if you think about it, who is the brand here? There are two brands represented, Anne Hathaway and William Shakespeare. There's nothing about the husband itself that stands out, but it is Anne Hathaway's brand that our mind immediately connects with on some level to say, oh, I know who that is. Oh, okay, I didn't know that was her husband. Well, he does kind of look like William Shakespeare. This is how people connect the dots when they're dealing with branding. All right. Next, we're going to dive into something that we call archetypes. And archetypes are becoming a really popular thing, and there's something that are really good for you to focus on in 2024, because we as humans, we tend to respond to recurring patterns and models in our life. And I'm a business coach, so I'm going to coach you for just a minute on this. But in our minds, we always relate to a place that we call home. Now, home in our minds is just things that we are truly familiar with, things that we've connected with maybe all of our lives. Maybe it's a scent that you walk by that reminds you of something in your childhood. Maybe it's a song that plays that reminds you of a time when you were in your living room making up your own dances, with your family or friends or your cousins or whoever. We always tend to relate back to things. And if we had to put a technical name to that, it would be what we would call archetypes, commonly observed different types of patterns that happen in our lives. Well, businesses have archetypes also, because businesses that you've interacted with in the past or have contact with also have recurring patterns in your mind. And so what this does is it helps you categorize and understand the fundamental structures, those strategies, and the characteristics that a lot of major businesses exhibit. It is great to follow these patterns because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It saves us a lot of time when we can find someone who has mastered something and then just create a mind map and a roadmap to lead us in the same direction towards success. Now, I'm not saying be a copycat and do it verbatim and get in trouble with copyright infringement and plagiarism and all these sorts of things. And there are tools in place to help us to avoid that. But each archetype here, you don't necessarily have to start from square one, but you do have to be authentically, you have to know how to be authentically yourself and move and be in yourself in your business. And these type of archetypes will help you kind of understand where you would fit, or if you can imagine what type of general template or framework would your business fit in if you were looking at these 10 archetypes. And I want to break down all 10 of these so you guys can see. So while I'm going through these archetypes, I want you to be thinking about where you think you would fit in as a business owner and as a business or an organization. Are you more so the innovator, which is the first one? So the characteristics of an innovative brand are the ones who focus mostly on innovation, right? And they introduce things that are disruptive to the market that immediately get your attention, something that you're not used to seeing because it's authentically creative. So are you that type of business or business owner? So examples of this are companies like Apple and Tesla. groundbreaking technology and products, right? These are the innovators or the disruptors of the market. So are you an innovator? Number two is cost leaders. Let's look at some examples, real life examples of cost leaders. So what does cost leader mean? A cost leading brand is a brand that competes by offering products or services at the lowest possible cost. And you guessed it, who comes to mind when we're thinking about beating folks out on costs? Because we're using economies of scale to grow a business rapidly. We can offer a lot of products and services at a discounted price because we know that most of the market will come consume from us. That's what the breakdown is. Walmart, cost strategy leader, billion-dollar enterprise in the retail industry. So when you think about your small business, is your business or your organization going to offer something that's going to be a cost leader to people? And people, there are still people that are highly attracted to business because of affordability, especially when you're thinking about things like what is actually happening with the economy. If folks are in economic downturns, these are the businesses that are definitely getting the most attention. So when we're talking about having a powerful brand also has a lot to do with knowing what's going on in your surroundings, what's happening in the business climate, what's happening in the economy around you and abroad that could impact your small business. Where in those happenings could you rise to the occasion? Or maybe where in those happenings do you need to maybe kind of sit it out and tone things down and figure out the season where you need to make some changes and try to rise above again? All of that happens with branding and not just you pricing your products or services. So it's really special to think about. All right. Number three, are you the niche specialist? Are you a niche specialist? Well, what does that mean? That means that you're only targeting a specific niche, a specific set of people. You could be a business to business operator. You could be a business only selling to businesses, or you could be a B2C operator, a business to consumer type business where you're selling to average everyday people. You're selling to people instead of businesses. Well, whatever your specific niche is, that's what a niche specialist business archetype represents. You're only targeting a specific segment of a market, and you've got specialized products or services for them. One good example here is Tom's shoes. There are a lot of people who buy Tom's, but a lot of people who purchase Tom's understand that Tom's is a socially conscious brand. And what they do is they pay attention to what's going on in the environment, and they base a lot of their decisions, a lot of their business decisions based on what is happening in the environment and what keeps that market of socially conscious individuals coming back to them. All right. And then we've got number four. So how can we know if your business is a customer-centric business? Good example of that, one of the best ones ever, Amazon. Customer-centric, they are totally focused and prioritizing the customer experience 100% of the time. It is all about customer satisfaction, customer experience, customer feedback. Even platforms where their customers can open their own Amazon accounts to sell. So it's also about sellers. But to Amazon, all of these people fit into the category of customer for them. So is your business going to be one that's going to be focused more on your customer experience and customer satisfaction? Amazon is known for this kind of approach. And anyone who pits up against Bezos and this company has got they're going to have a run for their money, because Amazon provides a seamless shopping experience in all sorts of directions. And not only have they provided a shopping experience, but if you just take a look at the pictures right here on the webinar, they have actually committed to different types of business models within the same business. So Alexa is its own almost like brand now inside of Amazon. There's Amazon Prime, Amazon Music, Prime Video. So there are different types of business models that they've used with this one customer-centric brand. And that is really the power of having a customer-centric brand, because it means that you're highly in tune to the experience of your customers, and they are willing to grow their brand and expand it. They're willing to adapt to the needs of the customers. So when you're branding and you're customer centric, just know that you have to follow the voice of the people closely, and you have to respond accordingly to the needs of what your customers are telling you that they want. These are some of the most powerful brands out there, the ones that allow the customers to actually run the show, because then people feel like their voices are actually heard. And not only have they connected once, but they've connected several times with the same business, and they've built several different types of connections with the business. So loyalty here is unbeatable. I guarantee you, people will always shop at Amazon, and people will always return to Amazon for more shopping because of the focus on customer centric business. All right. So are you that person? You got to see. Number 5, platform networks. Are you this type of archetype, of business archetype? So here are some examples of platform network businesses. So what are the characteristics of them? They're ones who facilitate interaction between different parties through a platform, a network. And it's usually a seller and a consumer, and they're acting as a mediator of some sort, and they're helping you get to a point of satisfaction. So Airbnb is there because they know that people love to go on vacation. They need to have somewhere to stay that accommodates them. It's convenient, it's affordable, it's what they're picturing their ideal vacation as, is what they want to accommodate their family while they're out. So this is an organization that's strictly internet-based. This is strictly an internet-based platform, and they connect a seller or a renter of a home with someone or a family who wants to actually rent that piece of property. And they act as a mediator between the two, facilitating whatever rental or whatever it may be, because sometimes people they'll rent out Airbnbs for specific occasions, for conferences, not just vacations anymore, but they have purposes behind them. So Uber is another one. You have a destination that you need to get to, or you have something that you ordered that you need delivered to you. Again, it's a buyer and seller type thing, but these platform network businesses, they operate as mediators in between, and this is very smart. Those businesses who form early businesses in technology have been a lot like this. There are actually another great platform right now is virtual assistants. It's not listed here, but there is a new virtual assistant organization on the scene where they're called doers. And doers are virtual assistants that can help you complete the work so you can get more clients, or so that you can expand your business, or that you can maintain your operations, while you actually on the other end, you're requesting what you need, you receive the benefit, which may be a growing and expanding business, or it could be that you're generating more leads, or you just have more time on your schedule to do the things that you want to do. But these are examples of platform network businesses. So do you have that type of business archetype? Or are you a franchise or purchased into a franchise? Definitely one of the biggest franchise models on earth, McDonald's. And they are a worldwide franchise. So franchise models replicate a specific and successful business model by allowing others to operate under the same brand and guidelines. Are you going to actually operate as a franchise and buy into one of these larger brands? But that's what a franchise model is, guys. All right, number 7. Are you going to be high end and exclusive? And we think luxury in the beginning when we first start thinking about this. So examples of high end and exclusive brands are things like Rolex, Ferraris, all the pricey and sparkly things, right? All of those things that speak luxury and high quality. Premium is the idea here. Is your business going to be offering a premium product or service to your customer base? Or is what you're going to be doing for your community going to be something premium that stands out amongst the rest, that's going to be top tier? And you're offering, often targeting a wealthier demographic when you have businesses like this. So that's the example of high-end exclusive brands. And that brings us to number 8. Are you going to have a socially conscious brand or socially responsible? And I mentioned another one earlier that was similar to this, which was Tom's. But here's some more examples. But and here are the characteristics also of socially responsible brands. So they integrate social and environmental responsibility into their business practices. So operational activity from day to day, they're thinking about environmental stability, how to reduce waste, how to reduce their carbon footprint. These folks are thinking about that every day. And not only are they thinking about it, they're acting on it within their operations. So your business could be one of social responsibility. That could be your archetype. Number 9 is one of the more popular ones as we move into 2024. I know you guys have probably heard of drop shipping and retail stores online. There are a lot more hefty fees that come along with owning a brick and mortar, overhead fees, for example, and maintenance fees and things like that. So people are really trying to get away from the brick and mortar model because they feel like, in a sense, and a lot of them are right, is there's a lot more lucrative opportunity when we go strictly e-commerce, and there are a lot more business savings when you're going e-commerce. And the digital world can provide you so much more visibility and reach rather than considering how much traffic is going to be passing through this part of town past my location. How much of those people can I actually capture as customers? E-commerce isn't quite the same way. Not exactly. You do want to know how many people are going to click to view my website, but there's so much more opportunity. Billions of people are online every day. So there's a huger chance that you get for more exposure, more visibility, increased sales, for people to know more about your organization and what you do, so people can volunteer, they can give their charitable donations, they can give of their time, or whatever it is. There's a lot more opportunity to be seen online. And so e-commerce is something that is booming right now. You're going to operate exclusively through online channels without any physical storefronts. And this removes a lot of headache for a lot of people. You just have to be really good online or with the internet, or you have to hire people who are really good online and with the internet. So examples, you see them here on the screen, and we've all probably heard of them. There's that Amazon again, but BigCommerce, Woo, Shopify, eBay, all of these folks are e-commerce dealers, and you can actually start your own online business and be an e-commerce player. And if this is your business, then you probably understand some of those challenges that I was talking about. I was mentioning earlier a second ago. All right, number 10 is one of my absolute favorites. Are you a local business, a small local business? So here's the thing. We want to support local, right? Absolutely, because supporting local means that we're supporting a community. Anytime we support a small business, whether it be e-commerce or franchise or wherever, we're also supporting our community. But there's just something about a mom and pop store that will always be near and dear to my heart. So these folks are serving their local communities with their personalized products or services. They could be antique stores, they could be jewelry stores, they could be stores where folks are making their own quilts or blankets. They could be ice cream shops that aren't major corporate ice cream shops, neighborhood bakeries, family-owned restaurants, all of these sorts of things. Sometimes the local flea markets that you have are just, they're privately owned and they're supported by locals. So small local businesses are definitely the backbones of their community. When we're thinking about things like tourism, this is where a lot of dollars are dropped that stay in town. And a lot of times when people are passing through town or touring through somewhere, they are looking for some spots like this to have a unique experience. They know that they can find a McDonald's, on the next exit, or whatever store it may be, or, if it's a shoe store, shopping center, mall, they know what to expect. But people who want a really unique and personable experience, they are looking for local businesses. The thing about local businesses is sometimes they still have the challenges of being those brick and mortars, but they still enjoy the partnerships that they build throughout the community. And depending on the location, the sales may also be really great. One of the things I want to mention also with the slide is, just because your business is a local business doesn't mean you can't be online. So even if you do own a local small business in town, you can also be selling your products and services online and tap into that e-commerce piece of it to keep your brand strong and expanding. But those are the 10 archetypes. And I just want to remind everybody here real quick while we're in this part, and we're almost about halfway through. Don't forget that you can drop your questions or even your comments in the chat box. That way we can always reference back to those, and we'll have something when we get to Q&A too. So don't forget to do that. All right. So that was us talking about authority. And authority is pretty much how you're defining who you are in your business in the very beginning. That's setting those goals and everything with your brand. The next thing you want to look at after authority is experience. So now let's chime in and let's talk about that. The experience means that you're understanding your customer and you know what you want them to experience and feel when they interact with your business. So in order to do that, you have to understand who they are. Who's your audience? What are their interests with what you're doing? How can it make that better or worse for your business? What will actually promote that and help them to do better or have better contact when they're intermingling with your business, or when they're online shopping, or when they're hearing about you in the marketing. So that's what that's all about. Understanding your audience. Your target audience is going to help you come up with your branding style. And this is where we need to be doing market research. We need to be studying these people. We need to be online creating the buyer persona, which is putting together a picture for who we think these individuals are. Where are they? What are they interested in? What pain points might they be experiencing that my business can help them solve? If I'm a community partner or a nonprofit or a local government agency, I'm looking at who are the stakeholders out here and how is what I'm doing going to impact their experience out here in the community. So this helps you create marketing campaigns and help you make major decisions in the business. All right. Awesome. That's what that section of it is. Now, other than just the experience, the next thing that we come in contact with when we're dealing with people in our brand is the feeling that our brand creates. And there's a couple of different feelings, not just a couple. There are so many different feelings, but there are, I would say, a couple of different feelings that we really do want to bring out in people with a powerful brand. One of those feelings is that of trust and dependability, reliability. That thing that tells a person or that tickles a person and lets them know, I can trust on that brand to be there for me. If I'm cleaning my house, I'm thinking about Pine Sol. If I'm going shopping, I know that some of the clothes I like are this certain brand. If I need comfortable shoes, I know that I can shop with this brand and I get it. I know if I don't want to be wasteful with the environment, I know that I can shop with this brand. So that trust is definitely something that's going to be a feeling that you want there when someone is experiencing who your brand is. Another thing that you want people to experience with your brand is some sort of joy or fulfillment. And with joy or fulfillment, you get that with satisfaction. So people who understand that what you've given them or what they purchased from you has actually met a need, that sparks joy and fulfillment in people. And when you can do that with a brand and build a connection with joy and fulfillment with a person, people often pursue their needs through pursuing purpose. And so when your brand is able to fill a void like that, or even spark the feeling of someone being fulfilled through what they have through you and that their needs are met, that's what you want to build. So that trust and that joy and fulfillment are feelings that you would always want your brand to represent. That's very powerful. So here, let's talk about those feelings a little bit. And if you kind of encompass everything that I just said, it leads you toward inspiration, right? Your brand should be inspiring to people in some sort of way or another. So you want your brand to be inspirational, but definitely authentic, because people can pick up a million miles away what's authentic and what's just trying to get me on board to do something or just to make a sale and add to their bottom line. And we don't want our brand out there being misrepresented like that. So here's the thing, we can't be afraid to explore. We got to get out of the box, right? You got to do the work, which means you're going to do the research by studying competitors or people who have done the same thing or something similar to what you're doing and figure out what has worked best for them. And again, don't worry about it because it doesn't mean that you're going to copy everything that they're going to do, but this is your starting point for building that powerful brand. So think about what is going to rank high on search engines. You know, what would most people search when they're looking for the type of business or organization that I'm starting? What keywords are they going to be using? What are people looking for? And this is going to help you get a better idea of what your customers are actually out there looking for and searching for. And there are tools to do this online. Find the top competitors or people closest to you that are almost doing the same things, especially the ones that have a larger client base and they have a well-established brand in the market. So don't just check websites, you know, go look at their social media channels. Check out anything that they may have in print and what other collateral is it. If they do actually have stores, what do those stores look like? You know, if it's an online store with e-commerce, how is it structured and set up online? So it's very important to find inspiration for what you're going to be doing. But at the same time, remember, you have to be authentic. And in order to have a brand that's powerful, people have to trust it and it has to fulfill a need and bring them some type of fulfillment or joy. That's the thing about number 3. All right. And now we get to actually design the brand, right? And we talk about the image. And this is the exciting part that everybody kind of gets worked up for. But notice again how this isn't the first thing that you do. This isn't the priority. By the time you get here, you should already have all of those other things that we talked about in your brand portfolio because it has led you up to this point. Because by the time you get to here, this is just a visual representation of everything that you've already talked about and discovered. But let's talk about the image now. You want to create an attractive design. That's the bottom line. But an attractive design includes all of these things that you're going to use to define your brand. And these are what we call brand elements, right? Each brand has a voice. Each brand has a story, an image. There's certain typography or font that you're going to be using for it. There is color representation in your brand, and colors can represent many, many things. And then finally, a logo that represents your business, which is that picture that we all love to talk about so much that gets so important to us because we have to get it right. And it is good. By the time you get to this stage, this should weigh heavily because this is the visual representation. And people connect with visuals just as much as they do the voice, the story, the feel, the tone, the color, and everything else. So these 6 elements, they're actually going to follow your brand everywhere. So everywhere that your business is represented, just think whether it's on a t-shirt somebody's wearing, whether it's on a bumper sticker, or it is a total car sticker that's wrapped on someone's car, or whether it's printed in a newspaper or up on a billboard. These 6 elements are going to be representing your brand. So not only do they have to represent it well, but they also have to be versatile and be able to be on each one of those platforms and have the same impact on each one of those platforms when it's viewed, or at least bring out that feeling and that experience that you want someone to have whenever they see or come in contact with your business. All right, if you have completed all the first 3 steps, then characterizing all of these main pillars are not going to be a huge problem for you. This should be more fun than anything else. Don't let this stress you out, okay? Start having a good time when you start defining your brand elements. Just know that they have to remain consistent because they have to stick with the same story that you used in your vision and mission and values. So your vision and mission can't be super serious and super professional and then your brand look cartoonish because it's going to be a poor representation of those goals and those core values that you set forward in the beginning, right? Right. Exactly. Like this is the fun part. This is the fun part. And to go back to Aletha's comment earlier, so I'm definitely a local business, provides a service that operates both locally and online. Yes, you can do both, right? That's exactly right. This is the fun part. Consistency here is essential. Yes. No, without a doubt. But a logo without a story means nothing. You know, we wouldn't look at the Golden Arches the same if we didn't know who McDonald's was. You know, we wouldn't look at the Nike swoosh the same were we not familiar with who Phil is that used to coach the Chicago Bulls and know that he's part owner, and that there were days where Michael Jordan wore this brand and now he has his own brand. So there are elements in the brand that are just going to keep the story of your business consistent no matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter how long you're in business. If you look at the brand of Coca-Cola over the years, and I wish I would have included this in the slide deck, the typography of Coca-Cola and the way the name is written has basically been the same since it's existed. And so have pretty much the colors between red, black, and white. But the way that that brand has transformed throughout the decades represents how it is to each and every generation that it touches, and how we all view those things differently. There's another brand on the scene that if I sing the jingle and the brand has a voice, if I said like a good neighbor, I'm pretty sure everybody behind their mics is like, State Farm is there. Each brand has a voice also. So what kind of voice is your brand going to have? And it's the consistency of it that's going to last throughout time. You know, the tone, is it exciting? Is it bold? Is it refreshing? What is it about your brand that needs to be exhibited in your elements? This is the fun part. All right. Number 5 is going to be taking that fun part and compiling it into guidelines. And now these guidelines are going to become a part of your portfolio, right? So how do we come up with brand guidelines? So we have to compile all of these things now in that portfolio. So I am going to actually show you some brand guidelines that I designed with a partner of mine for a company that founded her business not too long ago. So I'm going to pull that up and we're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you a great example of what brand guidelines would look like. But right now, while we're here on the description, let me just tell you that after you have all of the essentials in place, right? We've got the authority put together, we've got the experience, we've got the feeling, and now we have the image and the design. All of these essentials are under your belt. Do yourself a favor and document it. Because as we say in healthcare, if you hadn't documented it, then it hadn't been done. And as I say in coaching, if it's in your head, it really didn't happen. And it really may not happen until you put it on paper. So this is the part that sometimes people hate, is putting all of the information together, compiling it, make sure everything you've written out, everything you've crafted, and the order of your work that you've carried out, you're documenting it, and it's clear, not only for you to understand, but to share with others. Because what happens with a brand is when your business is out there in the world and you're finally ready to start the next step, which is marketing, you're going to have people who ask you for your brand guidelines and the materials that go along with your brand, so the marketing piece can properly represent who your business or organization is to customers and potential customers. If you have this in place, these guidelines, this portfolio, it is so much easier to send someone a link to a file to say, here's my information, than it is to have to go back and dig through books and type this all up and send it to people or to individuals who may need it to help you with marketing one by one. One email today. Well, I'll send you my logo tomorrow. I've got to dig it out of these files. Well, let me see where I put my vision and my mission. Let me see, did I save it here on my tablet? Do I have it on my laptop? Do I have it on the computer at work? And then let me figure out where I have which thumb drive is that on? Compile it. Compile it. Now, my favorite is Google Drive. I don't know how many Google people we have on the line. If you're a Google person, give me a thumbs up. Yes, and we got a viewer that calls it a brand board. Absolutely, I love it. It's mapping out everything that you've done. You've got to keep this clear. And like I said, I love to use Google to compile all of my things, create shared files, and it's so easy for me to share that file with the next person. So that's a great tool that I use. Another thing that I have a subscription to that has really helped me be consistent with my branding is Canva. You know, a lot of people use other graphics platforms. There are people who are really great at Adobe and are good at creating different things to help keep their brand consistent there and saving the different fonts and color schemes and everything in there. Canva works well for me. You know, it's an affordable platform. It is very versatile. It has a lot of options available to you, and you can actually save what they call brand profiles on it. So even if you have more than one business or more than one organization that you're working on, working for, that you own or that you're a part of, if you're doing this, then there are different profiles that you can set up within that one platform that can keep all of these separate for you. And so this is where I do all of my business activities to keep that branding consistent with each thing that I'm doing, whether I'm creating stories for online platforms, whether I'm creating TikTok videos or posts for Facebook or Instagram or on LinkedIn. The idea for what's going on with my brand is staying the same throughout. But it helps because all of these guidelines are compiled the same way. Yes, absolutely. I love Canva too. So this outline is not only good for you, it's good for people who may be joining your team in the future or folks who need to understand the style requirements to avoid mistakes. Because I'm telling you, it is really something to trust someone with your brand and want to have it represented well. But then when you get everything back, say you've asked somebody to do a project for you and you get it back and it's not quite the representation that you would have wanted for your business. Well, it's not necessarily that it's the individual's, fault or anything that you asked to do the work for you. Maybe the guidelines didn't represent the business well enough. So they weren't quite sure what the voice should sound like or how they should construct something in your business to make sure that it represented you well. So all of these things that you're creating along the way, all of this hard work that you're doing, compile it so it won't be lost. And I'm getting ready to share with you guys now an example of what brand guidelines could actually look like and how they help you structure your business and how they help keep your portfolio consistent with the representation for what you want your brand to be and look like to other people and how you want them to feel. So this particular organization that I help this client with is called Celestial Care, and it is a home health care facility. And here's the brand that she came up with for her business. And these guidelines were actually compiled with the typography that's used for her business. And let me show you. Let's go along through it now and take a look. So the overview is the first thing that I like to include in brand guidelines. And this is something great for you guys to take notes on because as part of this presentation, I'm not going to share these exact brand guidelines with you, but I will share the construct of these brand guidelines and how we put them together for this client, if that makes sense. All right. So this is what her brand actually represents, the identity of it. That's the first thing that we took a look at, that we defined. If we took a 50-foot view, if we were over the business looking down, what would it look like from a higher level? Which means, what is that vision and mission looking like? What are those statements? The persona for the design of all the subsequent brand artifacts. So everything that comes along with this brand, what does it encompass? Each artifact should have a specific role to play everything that you choose to represent your brand. And this is, remember, I know it's probably a lot of information, but we're talking about building a powerful, impactful brand, which again goes so far beyond logo that we just can't stay on graphics when we're talking about this. We got to talk about the real magic that happens when we put all of these pieces together that represents your business. That's going to help people connect and keep coming back to you time and time again and keep relating to you time and time again. So this is going to help you understand what's going on with her brand and express it in the best possible way. And here's just an outline of what's going to be included, a table of contents there. And it's good to do this for yourself to make sure that you're keeping in line, or that organization. I posted this on social media today. The organization of your business and the order in which you do things matters. So lay out a standard for yourself, simply put. All right. And then here's the owner. Here's the story behind the business. This is what the business is all about, right? We want to make that very clear. Your story has to be clear, relatable. People have to understand what the brand is really about. And she wanted hers not just to represent the professionalism, but honestly, kind of like a trust factor that went along with it, and an appeal, which is kind of like facilitating and seamless and coordination. And she's got her motto included here for the story that she wanted behind it. And the expertise is what comes out in it, and the systems and the values that constitute quality behind what her brand stands for, which is what the color of the gold represents in the logo. All right. And then we look at the philosophy behind the brand, right? And this is really big. And if you are taking notes, I want you to write down these 3 things under your brand philosophy, because that's exactly what these 3 things are: your mission, your vision, and your purpose. And for sake of argument, you could also list your objectives here also, but your philosophy, again, happens before any imaging comes behind that. So you can see her mission here: to uphold the higher standards of professionalism, the vision to ensure that her clients are comfortable and well cared for, her purpose to foster a safe, supportive, and respectful environment for her clients. So make sure your philosophy includes your beliefs for your business. And that has a lot to do with you personally and what you want your business being represented as out there in the world. All right. And then we got a tagline, right? It is great for your business to have this, because when we start talking about connections and relatability, if we want to make something relative for someone and we want to make something modern and kind of trendy and consistent to what's going on in the world that we are, it is much easier to sometimes tickle a tagline and change it around rather than just rebrand the name and everything completely. But it's much easier to change that representation with just a tagline. So I would encourage all small business owners, outside of your mission, vision, values, your purpose, or objectives, to create a tagline for your business. It can be any slogan or a motto, anything short that serves clarity for your business. It helps you with it helps with the dramatic effect in the business, but it clearly communicates your brand message. And as you can see right here, for her home health organization, her tagline is private, personal, and professional. Straight and to the point. Defines who she wants to be, how she wants people to know her, how she wants to be represented, how she wants the clients to even perceive her or their families. And that is actually, her tagline is actually a part of her official logo. You can see it there in the top right corner. You do not have to include that tagline in your logo. Let me just make that specific. You don't even have to include your business name in your logo if you choose not to. Sometimes it works well for some businesses, and other businesses it does not. All right. But this is the importance of a logo, right? So her primary logo is this, and your primary logo will be what most people come in contact with most of the time. The visual elements that represent your business and all of the philosophies that you've put together for your business. This is what your logo represents. It has to be consistent across the board. It has to be easily recognizable. The colors that are used in your logo should coordinate or bounce off of each other well. They should be able to be seen on printed materials clearly. There should not be any type of um anything that's going to have them out of focus, or even if it's hard to see from far away, you want to look out for things like that and be mindful of the colors that you use, what you're going to print your logo on, which you can't always help, but you want to make sure it's as versatile as possible. It's as versatile as it is representative of of who your business is. But it's got to be creative and precise, because it's going to stand for all of the things you want your business to stand for. And with her particular logo here, it's a combination of a logo and a watermark that's used with wings and a crown for that representation of professionalism and trust and care. Kind of angelic is what she was thinking, but it also promotes sensitivity, care, and exceptional quality to the people who are interacting with her business. All right. Now, the secondary logo, that's just the primary logo, just with the visuals with the wings and the crown. But her secondary logo is the one that we use as an expanded version where the tagline is included. So your logos can have a primary version and then an expanded version of it. So you may want to use this on things like business cards, more printed materials, on folders. If you have certain events where you're going to be using stickers for your logo, you want to make sure that anytime you're going to be sending your logo out there to the masses, especially when you're first trying to establish awareness of your brand awareness and brand identity, then you want to make sure that you're using the full version or the expanded version of your brand so people can understand. Really, it helps them understand and connect better with it. And if I had to stop for a second and talk about brand awareness, I would say this is that, again, we have so much excitement and so much zeal when we start out as new entrepreneurs, and we get so bogged down in the weeds of that excitement, and we feel like what we're building is going to work for the masses. It is so great to stop in between there to get feedback from individuals. What I would encourage that you do is find someone that you trust that is not just a yes person, but they are maybe an expert in the field. Social media sometimes is really good for this. It has its pluses and its negatives. But if you want raw feedback on a logo, it is great to be in the right Facebook group or have the right individuals that you can contact to send a sketch or a draft of your logo that you're thinking is going to work, and get that raw feedback. Because I'm going to tell you personally, before I came up with my last logo, I came up with something that I thought was so amazing and that it represented my business so well. And it was pretty much just this yellow dot with my business name written around the circle. And I'm going to tell you, when I sent that to a few people and I posted it in a social media group with just entrepreneurs, the feedback I got was, what is it? What does it represent? What do you do? I don't understand it. Why is it yellow? Why is it not a square instead of a circle? Wouldn't this be more representative, or wouldn't that be better? And that feedback that came to me immediately helped me realize, like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about this alone and I'm thinking that it's going to knock it out of the park. And it was a complete flop. And I'm so glad that I didn't go have business cards printed and put that logo on my website and all of this and that, just because I loved it. So always, always, always be open to constructive criticism. Welcome it, especially when you're designing a brand. It is so important, because although we're being authentic and we want it to represent who we are and how we want to be perceived, it is one thing for our perception, and then it's another thing for someone else's perception. So in the process of building out this brand, have several touch points included where you're asking for feedback on how this is going to feel and look when it comes to other people. Yeah, and I love the comment that was just shared in the chat. They could be your target audience. It's very true. So do that. And I just wanted to take some time to kind of soapbox that a little bit. Don't neglect people who you're going to be touching. Your logo isn't for you. It's not for you. Although you're going to love it and it's going to represent who you are, it's not for you ultimately. It is to help others connect to you. It's just a visual representation of who you are that other people are going to see, because not everybody is going to know your full vision, mission, and values if they aren't going to be, providing some sort of support for your business on some level or serving on a board of directors for your organization. They may not know that fully, but when they first come in contact with it, what is going to be sticky to them as far as visual representation that's going to help trigger that trust, that joy, that's going to say, hey, that looks neat. What's that all about? And so sometimes that happens with logos. And most of the time, that's what is going to happen if we learn how to form it correctly and build that right connection. So there is a size, a minimum and a maximum size for your logo. And having these printed correctly or designed correctly, or having the right people to actually create your logo to fit in different places. I have done logos for people that are going to be on smaller printed materials and just t-shirts. And then I have designed graphics for people that are going on billboards in New Jersey. There's a huge difference with what I'm doing with those graphics. They're still the same color, representation, logo, but the programs that I'm using to construct those things are different. And if you are someone who's not used to adjusting size with pixels, then you need to be, definitely consulting an expert or handing that entire project over to say, here is what I need. Be willing to make that investment in your brand. Don't go trying to save and at the same time have your brand misrepresented because you're afraid to invest in something. Now, you may have to compare, there's nothing wrong. Anytime I make a major investment, I'm always comparing at least 3 different entities or organizations that I want to work with. I always, rule of thumb, I compare at least 3. That's right. Vector images is exactly what you need to be using if you're going to expand these logos and these graphics to represent that. But only marketers would understand that. Like only true graphic designers would understand that. So my point is that invest in your brand to make sure that it's well represented, and never just throw something together with your brand and put it out there hoping that it's going to represent it well. If you have to hope or wish that your brand is going to stand out or is represented well, then you've got to immediately stop yourself and say, no, let me do myself a favor. Let me take a step back and make sure that I have everything that I need in place to make sure that when I am posting content on social media, that it is representative of me, or that when I do finally create this Facebook page, it is going to be in the eyes of other people what it should be. And the size of your logo and how it's used graphically is going to matter. So there's going to be a maximum, a minimum that you can use when it's designed certain ways. Just know that you may need a specialist to actually go into this for you instead of just putting it in an application and blowing it up. You want to make sure that it's a great representation before you put it out there. And there are some do's and don'ts with your brand images, okay? Some backgrounds go well, some frames go well. If it's going to be just the favicon or the image itself, that's fine if you're going to use just the name and the tagline. And then you could use the full expanded logo. And if it's going to have a background, you need to make sure that it's a background that coordinates with the logo itself, that's still representative of your business. So good example here is these are all different renditions of her logo, from different backgrounds to from expanded to condensed. There are different ways. From framed to free. You know, there are a lot of different formats here that we use to create her logo. Well, what about don'ts? You don't want to tilt it, you know, because that could take on a totally different meaning to something else. And when it comes to powerful branding and branding that sticks, is people need consistency. People need consistency to build familiarity. And so when they build that familiarity, it turns into trust. But you can't do that if the brand is always shifting. It has to remain the same. So you don't want to blow it up to where it's cutting off pieces of it or pieces of the writing. Using the wrong type of background could change the color scheme altogether. And trust me, a green green colors in a brand have a totally different meaning than yellow. That's just like if you use red in a brand, it has a totally different meaning than using burgundy. You know, if you use yellow in a brand, it has somewhat of a different meaning than using silver or gold. So sometimes changing that background behind your logo is actually going to change what's happening with the colors in the logo. And again, that creates inconsistency and you're stripping the power away from your brand when you're doing this. So there are a few things that you may approach with your brands that are going to be definite no-nos. So we've seen the do's. Keep it consistent, and at whatever angle it is, keep it straight. Make sure your backgrounds are exquisite and they're still representative and your original brand colors stand out. If you're going to frame it, make sure that frame is going to use the same color scheme. You can break it down and just use the graphics, and you can add, you can even in some things that you're in print, if you're in a newspaper and you just want to use the words or your tagline, that's fine, as long as that typography is consistent with your expanded logo. But again, here are some of the don'ts, and this is very important because a lot of times when people are posting, especially online, this can look different. And depending on what applications you're using and how your screen looks, how you have your computer or your phone set up, this may make your logo look different, and you don't want that. Stay away from that. Stay consistent with the color palette. And this is something that should also be included in those brand guidelines. Okay. Your color palette is going to have specific codes. There are color codes for each one that you're going to use. True graphic designers who are creating things for your business are going to ask you for your color palette or your color palette numbers, because they want to use the exact colors that are representative. So it will represent what your business wants it to. Exactly. They're called hex codes. If we got a graphic designer on here today. That's right. You want to use your hex codes. So the colors you choose for your brand are incredibly important in terms of how your customers and clients view your company. We touched on that briefly. All right. And the different ways that you can use your logo mark, the attractive colors that could surround it, definitely need to be complementary of it. Okay. Make sure that what you're using is complementary of it. All right. Now let's touch on that typography that I mentioned. Talking about branding. All of this is powerful branding. You're going to have a headline font that you're going to use to capture the attention in your brand. And this is usually if you have used any type of words or lettering in your logo, that should be your headline font. And then your subheading font is going to be something that's easily readable, in which if you would look down in her tagline, that's her subheading font. Very easy to read from a close distance or a faraway distance. But it is text that you're going to use. Not only are you going to use this when you're printing your brand, but your brand has to be consistent across the board for many reasons. It's used in your marketing efforts. So this could go on your actual website and different pieces of material that you print for your organization or your business. But it is all a part of that imagery and awareness that you're carrying across for everyone to see, so they recognize you no matter where they are. All right. So, and then you've got your main content font, which is going to be something it goes along the lines of the subheading font. It may not be the exact same thing. It can be, as long as it's easily readable, because the more we tend to use different types of font on our websites and in our printed materials, the more we are challenging someone to keep up in reading. And people like for things to be straightforward and simple. So if we're using 5 different types of fonts when we're creating a brochure, it tends to make people's eyes skip from, what do I read here first? Do I read there first? What's going to capture my attention? And people tend to get scattered on paper when you use several different types of fonts. So keep it consistent for your brand. Yes, stick to the rule of 3. And as you can see, that's all I've got listed here: your headline font, your subheading font, and then your content font. That subheading and that main content should definitely be very reasonable. All right, you guys, this is good. I love it. All right, and there's weight and style to consider when you're thinking about typography for your brand. What's representative of it? You may want to use something cursive if it's going to speak luxury or professionalism or elite, or those high-end archetype type businesses that we talked about. There are different types of different types of typography and fonts that are representative of different business types. So make sure that you're selecting the one that is relative to your business. All right, for the headline, sub font, and the body, the text body. All right, and out of your branding comes a pattern, right? So if you were to look at the imagery that's in her logo, and if she were to be printing labels, or if she were to be on some sort of printed programs for an event or something she would host, there's a pattern that the eye looks for when we're looking for logos. And symmetry has a lot to do with that, playing into that with the patterns that we recognize. But it's not only just symmetry, patterns can be, it doesn't have to necessarily be symmetrical. It just has to be repetitive, if that makes sense. So branding is exciting, especially when we start getting to patterns in these elements, because again, the attractiveness and the consistency of it, it tends to give us a feeling of trust, even though it's new, or reliability, saying that it's going to be here. It's what I'm seeing throughout for this person. It's what I'm reading throughout this document. I see this in the header. I see this in the footer. I see this in the side notes. I see this on envelopes that I get from this person. It is on their marketing. It's online that I see everywhere. And that representation of your brand creates authority every single time. It creates authority. So the pattern that your brand is using is going to bring about that increase in awareness, and it is going to improve the recognition of your brand in different settings. So this goes really deep. It brings depth to your brand identity because it helps create that memorable experience. All right. So what about other pieces of branding, right? And we're almost wrapping up now. So the tone of voice and the message that you're using in your brand is so important. So when you're writing out your brand message and your marketing message, how do you want it to sound to people? She wanted hers to be simple, clear, and professional, consistent with a focus on developing trust. So the first tone of voice that she wanted to use in her messaging was one that would inspire action for her audience. Having know this, and I'm going to stop and say this for a minute, and it isn't exactly a part of this slide, but it is in a sense, because this helps you understand how to speak the language of your audience. When you learn how to use the tone of voice and messaging in your brand, and you learn how to develop that trust, it teaches you how to really lean into who your target audience is, what that buyer persona is. And she knows that families that she serves who are going to need help with caregivers taking care of their loved ones, first they got to know that we're inspired to take action. So that's the first thing that she wanted to be simple, clear, and professional and concise with the people that she's speaking to that she and her team are inspired to take action for them. The second thing that she wanted them to know was that the alignment of their goals create impact in the lives of the families that they're serving. And then the third thing that she wanted to come out in the tone and messaging in her brand was that she's going to be able to transform ideas to create valuable documents for those families. So people that she's serving, there's certain documentation that they're going to need to see as proof to how well their loved ones are taken care of when they're not around, because most of the time this is when those individuals are working. And sometimes that takes place in creative ways. And so in her messaging, she thought it was important that in creating that message that people understand that her organization is going to be able to take those innovative ideas but to transform them into documentation that is going to be valuable for the family to use as accountability for taking care of their loved ones. That's a really powerful brand. And I have to brag on this business owner for a minute because she has recently gone from from working remotely at home and having caregivers kind of go out into the field for her to her actually now having a brick and mortar, and her business is expanding. And a lot of it is because she learned how to speak the language of the potential customers early in the beginning stages, and she trusted me as a coach along with some individuals to help create this messaging for her. So it wasn't all done on her own. And we did a lot of market research. We asked for a lot of feedback in creating this for her to make it a success. So that's going to sum up what brand guidelines will actually look like. And it would be very interesting. I would love to know what you all think about actually going through those brand guidelines and how you feel like those could impact your business. Now let's get back to the presentation so we can finish up here. So that's everything about putting together that portfolio for your brand and what those guidelines could kind of look like. So I hope that helps kind of structure in your mind with that real world example. Here's what I'm putting together when I'm creating a powerful brand for my business or organization. All right. So finally, that fourth thing that we talked about was the connection. Well, really, I think this is about the seventh or so thing that we talked about now, and that list of structuring out a powerful brand. The last thing that we're going to talk about here today, before we get into Q&A, is that connection that your brand should build in order to become a brand that's recognizable, that's consistently used or called upon over and over again, that's mentioned in rooms when you aren't there. This is where that magic happens, when you start building a connection. How do you build a connection with your brand? You got to think about figuring out how to do this through several different mediums, right? There are so many ways to get on a level with so many different audiences and people. Which one is going to help you adapt better to your target audience, or to the people that you want to serve, or to the people that you want help from? You've got to adapt your style to everyday communication. So you have to make it relevant to today when you're thinking about your brand connecting to other people. So I have to say, brand design is not all about the visuals, but it's all about the comprehensive use of how you use the style of your brand and the communication in which you use it. And that's a really powerful statement, and I hope y'all caught it. It's not all about the visuals, but it's about the comprehensive use of your brand style and how it communicates. So putting your brand to use makes the difference, is what I'm saying. So before you start getting all creative and going out there in left field and things that you're really excited about, think about the channels that you're going to use to reach people who are going to come in contact with your brand. Because I guarantee you, I don't communicate with my client base or potential customers on LinkedIn like I do on TikTok. And there's a different communication that I use on Facebook versus Instagram. None of those really look like exactly or exactly sound like how I talk to people through email. Because even though it's the same authentic brand and I'm carrying the same visuals, there are different means of communication and different ways that people tend to connect with as far as communication when they're on different platforms. Facebook may be more fun and lively, while LinkedIn is a lot more professional on its dashboard. In TikTok, we're looking for highly descriptive videos. So where on Facebook, I may just be posting a reel or just a photograph of a list of things that you would need to do to start a business correctly, where on TikTok, it's the same logo and it's still me, but the frames change more quickly. I still representative of my colors, but it's a lot more vibrant, and my call to action may be different. It may be comment start if you're ready for me to help you with a startup. Whereas on Facebook, it may be, send me a DM and I'd be happy to do this for you, or I'd be happy to send you this free video or this free training. So it's still authentic, and I'm the business owner, and it's my same brand, and I'm providing the same products and services. However, my communication is going to be serving the way that the audience is looking for it. And it's going to be trending in that medium the way that the audience is looking for it. It's what's happening now. So it's that everyday style that you have to plug into. But you can only be aware of that if you're consistently on top of that. Not that you're online all day, every day, studying how this works, and you're on YouTube University constantly without taking a break, because that's not healthy for anyone. But you need to be, this is your business or your organization. So you need to be cognizant of what is actually taking place on these different platforms, and how is your business going to be represented well on these platforms. All right. And then number 7, don't be afraid to grow. Fear not. Don't be afraid to grow. Grow together with your clients. They're going to change often. People's needs are going to change. And they still may need what you're offering. They just may need it in a different capacity, So the idea of growing together with your client means that you've positioned your brand well enough that you can go through development and improvement to meet changing market needs. Whether your brand is Coca-Cola or a local retail shop or mom and pop or e-commerce store, you are always going to have to strive to meet your audience's demands, right? And perhaps your business is expanding to other niches, or your services may change. Maybe I know as a coach, I'm not teaching some of the same things that I taught 5 years ago. I'm not teaching what I taught in my business 10 years ago, because the economy has changed. So I don't talk about business banking the way I used to. I don't talk about business loans the way I did 7 to 10 years ago, because the market needs have changed and my customers' needs have changed. So it has to be, my brand is now inclusive of things that are relevant to today, but it is strong enough to be a legacy brand so it can stand the test of time, but it's just adjusting to the needs of the market. So don't stifle your growth, because it's smart to change, and change has to be something that's always welcome. Consistency in the brand, but adjusting to the market with the needs is where it's at. So in summary, I will tell you this: branding design is every company's priority. It's all of our priority. A powerful brand is. It represents your vision, those values, and it helps people connect to it and connect their lives and their interests and their hobbies and their needs. This is what your brand does. So if you choose your brand wisely and you build it wisely, eventually, like I said earlier, it will start selling itself and it will start representing itself. So that's the training I have for you today on building a powerful brand. And I hope that the 7 pillars that we mentioned earlier are going to be something to stick with you. And if I had to repeat them again, I would, and let you know that the first one again is setting your core values. And then number 2, you're going to understand your audience. Number 3 is getting out and exploring. Number 4 is designing your brand. Number 5 is creating that portfolio and those guidelines to compile it all. So number 5 is creating a portfolio. Number 6 is making and keeping it relevant. And number 7 is remaining ready to grow, always staying ready to grow. That's how you build a powerful brand. That's how I have done it over the last 10 years. And it has truly, truly served my business well. I'm actually at a point now where my brand is able to sell itself to those who have become familiar with it over the years. And your brand can do this too, especially if your organization is new. You are going to create something that's powerful and useful and versatile if you use these principles that I've given you here today. All right, I want to open up the floor now for question and answer, and thank everyone for joining. So if you have any questions at this time, feel free to pop them in the chat, or honestly, you could come off mute and ask.